Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are.
Good
Welcome.
evening. Good evening.
Welcome to Facebook Live. I hope everyone is doing well. It is the 22nd of June, year 2022. I wanted to welcome our panel today. We have Patricia, who has joined us, who's part of our regular group meditators. Good evening, Patricia. And then Michelle has joined us as well. Good evening, Michelle. She's another member of our regular group meditators and also moderates our group. So we are grateful for that. And we also have Ken on the road, from the road, here with us. Good evening, Ken. Thank you for joining. So I don't know if you'll remember last week, and actually Sri Lakshmi and Lakshmi are not on video, but they have joined us as well. So we are so honored to have both of them as well with us to anchor our presence power. So I wanted to bring up last week, do you all remember Hugh was asking questions? So he has follow-up questions from last week, and I will bring up the follow-up question. So he says, I have a question for discussion. Last week we talked about unconscious family members. You gave an analogy of perfect hair expectations, which made a ton of sense, complemented with the mental umbilical cord tied to the parent. Thank you for making me see that. Kelly mentioned ego, which ties in with your perfect hair analogy. Ego gets inflated by being right. So the question is, so would you agree that all people would be better off conscious and walk the way we walk? Is our belief system egoic? No matter what your answer is to question one, it will pertain to your beliefs. Where do you draw the line with ego? Eckhart mentioned spiritual ego, in my view, making us aware of being a potential bully of the movement. So let me put all of this. Good evening, Caesar. Thank you so much for joining. And let me introduce you to Caesar. I'm sure the people who already view our Facebook Lives are familiar with Caesar, who is a channel and a spiritual teacher. This stems from the question from last week, Caesar, when Hugh was asking questions, remember? It was about his, we were discussing narcissism, and I'll read it out one more time. He says, I have a question for discussion. Last week, we talked about unconscious family members. You gave an analogy of perfect hair expectations, which made a ton of sense, complemented with the mental umbilical cord tied to the parent. Thank you for making me see that. Kelly mentioned ego, which ties in with your perfect hair analogy. Ego gets inflated by being right. So then come the questions, right? The questions are in the chat on here on Zoom, where the first question is, so would you agree that all people would be better off conscious and walk the way we walk? Is our belief system egoic? No matter what your answer is to question one, it will pertain to your beliefs. Where do you draw the line with ego? Eckhart mentioned spiritual ego, in my view, making us aware of being a potential bully of the movement. So if you want to answer this, Caesar went off camera. I was going to have Caesar answer the question, but Michelle, did you want us to get started? And I'll, okay, there I see Caesar. Caesar, did you want to get started on the question? You're on mute though. And then I'll tag everyone while you're speaking.
Okay, so would you agree that all people would be better off conscious and walk the way we walk? Well, it just simply is what it is. And I think everybody's at their own level of their journey or own stage of their journey for a reason. It has to be that way to help other people and themselves. So I always turn to somebody, like Sadhguru or Abraham Hicks, Joe Dispenza, Eckhart Tolle, and watching these guys and seeing their mannerisms and how they are just so radiant with peace and joy. So I don't think it would be right. Jim. I apologize. Um, Eventually people would be conscious if, I mean, but I don't agree that, it would be better off if everybody was conscious and walked the way we walk. I mean, that just is what it is. Two, is our belief system egoic? Well, the need to be right is the ego's biggest need. Um, Beliefs limit you from the isness of situations a lot of the time. If you have a belief, a belief is just a repeated thought. And the more you strengthen your belief, it becomes your truth. So I try not to have beliefs in general about anything, because what if? It's limiting when you have a particular belief. Okay, no matter what your answer is to the question one, it will pertain to your beliefs. That is absolutely 100% true. That's pretty beautiful. Um, okay, number four, where do you draw the line with ego? Eckhart mentions spiritual ego, in my view, making us aware of it being a potentially bully of the movement. Well, I don't know. This one's probably better suited for Kelly. um, where do you draw the line with ego? Well, when you recognize the ego is at work, it's a good thing to just return back to the present moment and dissolve the ego at that point. Um, as long as you are aware that the ego is at work. So, like when you first get on this journey of consciousness, it is true that you'll recognize the ego in other people, and then you start to see it within yourself. It's easier to touch, and that goes back to question number one, in regards to, uh, would people be better off conscious and walk the way we walk? Um, Again, everything happens for a reason. It's all part of the bigger picture, the bigger plan. Um, it's kind of all I got on that one. So yeah, I mean, where do you draw the line with ego? Well, as soon as you recognize, as soon as you are aware that the ego is there, um, the ego cannot coexist with the present moment. However, it is important when you're first getting into the journey of sorts that you are not going to simply just put the brakes on and dissolve the ego like that. It has gained momentum over many, many of years, depending on your age, I suppose. And you first have to slow the momentum down. And that's why, again, it is kind of important that we can see this in other people. If everybody was conscious, we wouldn't know the difference. So the contrast there is important. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Caesar. So when he asks, is our belief system egoic? When you said belief is a repeated thought, so that is egoic, because ego means we're creating an identity, and because we are thinking a thought over and over again, we are identified with the thought. We are not the spaciousness of presence. So belief systems are egoic, is true. And so would you agree that all people would be better off conscious and walk the way we walk? Question one and two, three are tied.
Yeah. So, would I agree? Well, of course. I mean, that is my hope for everybody in existence, to be fully conscious. You want that for people. It would be awesome and amazing. Um, so, would they be better off? I'm going to go ahead and say yeah. And again, that's just my belief, but it's also a part of my compassionate side that maybe stems from the extension of source that we are, to want that for others. So it would be nice to have a world of, you know, one of the two kinds of people on this planet, conscious or unconscious. And what a beautiful place it will be. And I think, I feel like over the last 10, 15 years, that we have made a tremendous shift on this planet as far as the awakened ones, or people that have shifted to the conscious side of things and are more conscious today than they've ever been. I think there's something happening in these past few years that are really things are really moving. We'll just say, but I think this shift is on, and it's a beautiful thing.
And then question 3, no matter what your answer is to question 1, it will pertain to your beliefs. That is not a belief. That is a knowing. That's an inner knowing that the more conscious we become, the better the planet will be, right? It's not a belief. So his question itself is incorrect in that it will pertain to your beliefs. It's not a belief. It's a knowing, because we see it for ourselves, right? Caesar, even I feel so, like, for the more conscious I become, my world becomes more peaceful. Like, there is whatever arises. It doesn't mean challenges don't arise, but the way I deal with the challenge, it's so peaceful, right? No matter
Yeah,
what,
absolutely.
no matter what happens. So that makes me feel that if all people were conscious, the more the people would be conscious, the more unconsciousness we dissolve on this planet, the more we move towards that golden age, the Garden of Eden, right? Where everything was perfect, it was spring everywhere, and there was just loving kindness and compassion and unconditional love. That infinite love, which is our true nature, exists, right? We're
Exactly.
moving towards that.
Exactly. And that's why it's such a blessing to just be here with such amazing people, and to know that there are so many people out there, everybody on this panel, the members that are on this journey and sharing their light. We're not here just because it gives us something to do on a Wednesday night or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
it's like it just feels good. It feels right. Yeah, and you just summed that up just perfectly, Poonam. You did.
Beautiful. Thank you. Michelle, did you want to answer some of these questions? Something arose for you?
Yes, I do with the first part. Would you agree that all people would be better off conscious and walk the way we walk? Yes, I think ultimately becoming conscious leads to peace. And I think we would be better off if there's more peace. It's simple. And that's what Eckhart points to when he talks about a new earth, because that would be the next stage of human evolution, is to become more and more conscious so we could live in a world that offers more loving kindness, more peace, more equality, right? So to me, that's, 100%. Is our belief system egoic? Well, I think maybe it's your ego, like the ego can come in through the back door and say, well, if you think I'm egoic, then, this is what you're saying is just your own belief, right? It's like trying to turn it around. But I agree with you, Poonam. It's like an inner knowing of, like, this resonates, to not at the form level, but at the essence level of who we are. So to me, yeah, that's a knowing. And no matter what your answer is to question 1, it will pertain to your beliefs. Well, again, it's the knowing. Now, where do you draw the line with ego? Eckhart mentioned spiritual ego, in my view, making us aware of being a potential bully of the moment. I think that there is that potential for people that identify themselves as spiritual beings, and then they wrap themselves up in the cloak of forms that have to do with spirituality and show the world. This is like, I think even Eckhart had a story about that in A New Earth, where, you could have a poor man riding a bicycle being so identified and victimized by his poverty as a person that's wealthy. I mean, yes, you can identify with the role of being spiritual. I think the importance is how you resonate with that spirituality inside, regardless of the outer form. So there are people that do walk this, say that they're spiritual and want to be identified as being spiritual. And then that can be the ego coming in through the back door. And I don't think there's bullying. If you're truly in line with these teachings, then you offer compassion and understanding that those that are living from the egoic level, because we won't be pointing the finger. I mean, if you understand the predicament of living on this planet and in the earthly plane, and how conditioned patterns run everybody. That's like the operating system, is those conditioned patterns, until you can recognize the conditioned patterns and say, I don't want to live like that anymore. But if you're really walking the spiritual path, you don't offer judgment, you offer compassion. So I think that's the opposite of bullying. Could there be people that so-called walk the spiritual path that can be say, well, your way is wrong? Well, then that's the ego coming in through the back door, right? I mean, it's a case-by-case basis, but if you're really walking the path, then you're just going to offer compassion and not judgment, because you were there too. We were all there. You know what I mean?
Beautiful. Thank you, Michelle. So where do you draw the line with ego? Eckhart mentioned spiritual ego. I mean, there is no way do you draw the line with ego. That's what we are here for, is to unlearn what the ego, whatever the ego has learned. We are, like you said, the word programming, right? We are learning how to erase that programming of the ego, which is the karmic accumulation, the dense, what Eckhart calls as dense karmic accumulation. We are here to see our conditioned patterns and unlearn them. So there is no drawing. It's like until we take our last breath, we will be working towards erasing our ego. So there's no drawing the line, right?
And I think also the ego has served humanity. I mean, like the survival portion, I mean, we have that primordial, right? Instinct to survive. And I think the ego was born out of that, survival instinct. So it's just identified now with the mind. So we have to learn to leave that behind and not trust all the thoughts that are coming in, that we're being threatened by judgments or I think sometimes, the threats are just mind-made, right? So we have to be able to detach from that and see how the ego manifests itself in our daily lives that no longer serve us, and then drop that.
But there is no line drawing. Where do you draw the line with ego? There is no line to draw with the ego. That question again would be incorrect, that we draw a line with the ego. But at some point we need the ego. I like the term that Eckhart uses, that we have a form identity. Like I'm always going to love butterscotch, like the vanilla flavor, right? No matter what it is, I like maple infused with the Madagascar vanilla. I love the vanilla flavor. That form identity is not going to go away. So that's an aspect of the ego. Where do you draw the line with it? So there is some form identity to every human being, but I feel like Eckhart says, right, instead of being 40% presence and 60% or 80% ego, we can be 20% or 10% ego and 90% presence. And that will in itself manifest a lot of loving kindness and compassion into the world. Right?
Yep, for sure.
And then he says, making us aware of being a potential bully of the movement, mention spiritual ego. Eckhart mentions spiritual ego. In my
I don't
view,
know where he mentions that.
I think your
I-
example of
In the context of that,
yeah,
maybe.
your example of the bicycle, the guy on the bicycle, or a person that suddenly, I feel people who are new to learning about presence practice end up having a spirit, then they start to compare themselves. I see that in the Eckhart's groups, like that a community in presence, or the large groups that have 100,000 members or so, right? People will start to look upon their family members and their friends and say, oh, that person is unconscious. I'm more conscious. But like comparison itself is you are unconscious, and that becomes the spiritual ego. So uh, it could potentially, it's not so much as a bully of the movement. It's just that they are also going through their, nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness. They're going through their own path as well. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you for your insights. Ken, did you want to say something about these questions?
Yes, I just want to say what I've heard from everyone has been excellent, and a lot of what you're saying, Poonam, is really you're hitting the nail on the head, and the dots are coming together beautifully. What I want to say is being present. Well, I guess first I want to say yes. I think people finding their path of presence, or finding their path, seeing how or why things are the way they are if they're not present. And when they start looking, the ego will definitely be right there, marching its way through all types of things and repeating behaviors that bring on pain and suffering, that will bring on a lot of negativity, not having clarity, not having the strength or the courage that are our natural instincts, and understanding that our natural instincts got warped somewhere along the line of our development, whether it be physical, human development, or whether we start to understand spiritual development, and then going through the process. It's almost like we're fighting or resisting, which is ego, and not understanding the full percussion of why things are working out the way they are. And then having an understanding when being with other like-minded people to help you through areas that you're struggling with, fighting with. And then once we have that understanding that there's, I want to say, two worlds. One world is just surviving and repeating behaviors. And if nothing's done about it, it will just be repeated. And then once we start to understand what surrender is, or once we start to understand that there is another way, that there are solutions to problems, but we have to be willing, or we have to commit ourselves to doing the work, and realizing that the work is not easy. But if we want it bad enough, it will definitely pay off, and our world and our understanding of things will drastically change. So it's just incredible. I'm gonna even think of my own path, being present, and then understanding that when I'm working through something, it's like I'm going to be like on a seesaw. I'm going to call in my unconsciousness, and then also being conscious, and I'll go back and forth at times. And then some days it's almost like being tested. You go into unconsciousness, and a part of you wants to quit. it's almost like you're having a relapse in thinking or in your emotions. So realizing that there are different parts of us that need healing, and the healing will occur when you ask for it, when you're with others that are working through similar situations, and it just starts to come. It's almost like it's a what I call a spiritual muscle, and things start to shift and change. And sometimes you'll bawl your eyes out. Sometimes you might get angry, but realizing that's not you. That's the unconsciousness, or that's the ego that wants to stay alive. And it will lie, cheat, and steal and do whatever it can to make that shift. And then realizing we can't do it alone, that we need a loving energy or to be in alignment with others that understand this. And that is the most incredible feeling, to be able to have these breakthroughs. So that's where I feel it would definitely help others if they wanted to get on this path. And some of people may not be ready. They may not want it bad enough. And sometimes the pain has to be so great, or the suffering, that we say, I can't live like this anymore. There's a part of you that really wants to die. And so that's where the choice comes in. If you want it bad enough, we have the door wide open. You're welcome in. So anyway, thank you very, very much. It's a great, great topic.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. I think
Thank you.
Patricia will enjoy your response very much, because Patricia and I have been texting back and forth on this topic. I actually wanted to ask you, Patricia, after you're done, do you want me to ask that question, ask Caesar that question, and you want to discuss it? Yeah. Okay. I'll put it more
Sure.
gently.
Yeah,
But
the question is out there. I don't think it's only my question. It's out
because
there.
even Ken brought it up. So
Yes, he did. He did.
so go ahead, and do you have an answer to these 4 questions?
Yeah, I do. Something came up quick.
Sure.
My understanding is that ego has a purpose, and otherwise it wouldn't be here. So an acceptance of it transforms it, but it functions in the world of duality. And we are on the journey to realize that we are one. So ego almost has to be there to create that struggle, adversity for us to want it, to want other way. Otherwise, if ego was awesome, cool, and we would just stay ego. We stay that identity of form, but how else will we find out that we're not just this body if the body, the pain bodies and identification wouldn't make us suffer, right? So I think it's needed, and I can only answer for myself. I feel from the depths of my heart and being that I am better off on this journey than I was before. So, and knowing the soul's contract that must have happened, that happened for a reason. Everything that happened was meant to happen. And just for a while, I wanted to get rid of the ego. And that was just only making it more strong. So I was lacking acceptance and compassion. And yes, I did feel moments when I read The Power of Now, I wanted to teach it to everyone and tell them I'm so better off, look at me. But it was still empty. I was not integrated. So I was judging others that you didn't read, you didn't, you don't know A Power of Now, what's wrong with you? So that's the maybe spiritual ego but I wasn't spiritual really because I just thought I was. So that's what Michelle said, the ego coming in back door, you know. So it always keeps us on the path. And once we accept it, it's amazing that, because like you said, Poonam, we got this human form through which we experience, very unique experience that only us can experience. So that ego allows us, in a sense, to do that, and then to transform the parts, the beliefs, everything else, that until you strip to actually nothingness. But even though time doesn't exist, the journey in this dimension, we do go through time. And, you know, once that happens for you in this lifetime, it's almost like, oh, it was always here. We just have to get through those experiences, through life situations, to get there, to get to actually discover what we really are. So I think enjoying, like Caesar said, he just enjoys everything. That's the state. And of course we want it for everybody, but you can only, once you have it, it's almost like you did your part and everybody else gets a piece of it. So we can only, you know, tell it for ourselves. And so the rest, I think, answers itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And what you pointed out on the, when you review your past, at some point in our spiritual journey, we come to that maturation that we begin to know exactly why the vehicle was prepared to do what it needed to do, right? So I remember I used to be a very shy person. Like if my mom had a visitor, I would go hide behind the drapes. Like I wouldn't come
Me
out
too.
into the living room, right? Then in 11th grade, my brothers suddenly said, my mom had some bank thing to do. And my brothers said, you go figure it out, you do it. It always was, you know, because it was the man's job, it was always like I would leave it to my brother to do all those kind of activities, right? And then one point he turns over to me and says, no, you go figure it out and you do it. And I was so upset as a 16, 17-year-old girl. I was like, he is discriminating me. He's this thing, right? That he's wanting me to go to a bank and like talk to these officials and figure out what I need to do with, whether it was depositing money or I don't know what it was. She always had something to do. And now I realize the grace and great gratitude for that, because that taught me how to push myself to talk to men, to talk to people, right? And I came to a different country to be able to talk to different people, right? Now I see the grace, but I remember the 15-year-old that was upset. I can go back in the past, like Byron Katie makes us go back into that still moment, right? And then take the turnaround. When I was 15, I was judging him. The same thing with my mother. My mother used to like give me errands to do, like a boy child, right? She would like, you need to go do this, now go do this. But I know because I did so many of these activities, that vehicle was prepared to go out and work in corporate America. If not, I wouldn't have been able to survive corporate America. It's so aggressive, it's so demanding, right? So, but that vehicle got prepared. The same thing with technology. Like my I needed to do a student worker job or take a graduate assistantship so that I would get the scholarship. And what happened was I went to this person in the computer center at LSU, and he would ask me a question. Do you know how to do this? I would say no. Do you know how to do this? I would say no. Do you know how to work with computers? I would say no. And then he hired me. And that was the moment of grace, because what he taught me is what led me to my first job and subsequent job. But that technology is what I used to figure out all this Zoom and creating the workshops, like the whole platform. It was so easy for me to do because technically I'm prepared, right? Like the vehicle is already, that's what is the grace that everybody needs to understand in their past. We don't know what our parent is doing in pushing us, like when your father was pushing you, but that pushing allowed us to survive in a different country. If you didn't know how to survive, push, right, despite the uh, how adverse this, whatever adversity comes across our path, we know how to push, we know how to survive, because our parents made us do that, right? They gave us the most adverse conditions possible. Like I had chores the moment I came back home. I was like, why can't I be like other kids and just play? No, I had chores. I had to fill water, I had to clean the house, my brother had to do the dishes, he had to cook. Because he was older, he was the one that had to come home and make dinner, so that dinner would be there for me and my mother, right? So we each had chores, and I was like, why can't I be like free and carefree child? But I was not. But then that taught me how to take care of a home here in the US, where you don't have maid servants or anybody to take care of, right? You have to do the dishes,
Yeah,
you
so
have to
you
clean
have, yeah, now you have your assignment, right? And you, the life was almost getting every step of
prepared.
the way, getting you ready for it. But it's all about fighting the experience. I think Muji said that we're not experiencing the suffering, we're suffering the experience.
Yes.
So that's our job to remove, by just trusting that that is here and see the grace and blessing in everything, not that
Exactly.
it's the tests are out to get us, or it's just the minute you feel resistance, that's the key.
Mhm.
That it's,
But at 15, whatever my brother did, and I had many fights with my brother, whatever the, and I love him to death right now. Like I had loved my brother. So our relationship right now is like the most incredible relationship right now. But to see the 10-year-old or 11-year-old or 12-year-old child going through this thing, I always thought that in India, the other thing we have is the belief, and I think Summer mentioned it too. She always felt that her mother always favored the boy,
voice.
right? And the same thing happened with me. He was older, and so he was favored. That's what I grew up. But that I know what that limiting belief ended up like in corporate America. Also, I had that belief that the men will get more of a
Yes,
chance, right?
it's
But then
it's
that's
still
what I
out there.
manifested as well. I manifested that as well. So Caesar, the question that what I would like to, the way I would like to rephrase what Patricia asked me is, if we were like, you may have to go back to, I have to go back to 10 years back, what's happening to me to figure out how to respond to Patricia. But if we slide back into negativity, right? Like we slide back into our old patterns. How did you heal that? How did you get to that turning point? How did you get to, okay, now I can be more and more present? What was your journey like? Like, what did you do? What are the different, and I've told Patricia quite a few things, because the same thing just now, Ken kind of, that's why I was saying that Ken exactly reflected the thoughts that Patricia was having, because Ken talked about that, right? The unconsciousness. that you're teetering between unconsciousness and consciousness, and these unconscious moments are what, like, maybe take you into a dark cloud, right? And then you're like completely down, depressed, that, oh, I thought I was doing so good spiritually, right, Patricia? I
Yeah.
was doing the cleanse, I was doing medical medium protocol, I was working, I was doing yoga, I was doing my presence practice, but now I'm gotten into this deep, dark, old victim identity. So how did you get yourself out? And that's a question for all of you. How do you get yourself out?
So this is like personal, yes. So I mean, for me, it was growing up with around a lot of bikers, and we'll just call them Italians. So these were some hardcore people, and I always had a compassion to help people and animals. And what really got me was experiencing the death of my family. That just brought me to have answered some questions from the other side, if you will, in pertaining to, what are we here for? What is our purpose? Where do we go when we die? What happens when we die? All these kind of things. And I needed answers. Well, I kind of knew I had a gift at a young age also. So there was a lot in me that I just felt like I was always being guided, um, until I actually read The Power of Now. Everything clicked, because prior to that, for 5 years, I was trying to, I studied everything from the Bible to, just everything, Judaism, Hinduism. I turned to Sadhguru. I just like nonstop for 5 years trying to pull these answers. And it seemed like a lot of the time, and even some of the philosophies like Buddhism, the more I tried to understand it, especially the Bible, the more confused I got. And then there came a point where I think I was on the third time of reading The Power of Now, and something just, it just shifted. And then from that day forward, I could go back into any one of the previous teachers' work and see it with clarity. And uh, there came a point after about probably 6 years that I slowly went back to sleep. And looking back now, that needed to happen. A relationship went bad, and it is what it is. And I didn't do what I knew I needed to do, and that was probably get up and go. So I, in a sense, kind of became, I fell back asleep for a short period of time, but I needed to go through that stage again, um, in order to understand that this is not just a phase. This is a lifetime. This is the journey. This is what everything's about. And helping people and seeing people help people. That's the things I like to see in life. Learning the material things mean absolutely nothing in this lifetime, and there's a whole lot of nothing that means a whole lot of anything. In reality. Um, that the deaths for me in my family was what brought me to my precipice of um, diving into this journey.
Thank you so much, Caesar, for sharing that. Just one thing, in that moment when you went back to falling asleep, was there anything that you did specifically to pull yourself out again, or that was just pure grace that brought you back up, right? Awakened you?
That is an absolute beautiful question. So, okay, so I was unconscious again, let's just say, for probably about, I'm going to say, the better part of a year. And for me, it was just, I started to identify with everything again: the job, the money, the nice house, the girlfriend. And one day it really honestly just smacked me in the face. And I just kind of walked away from the relationship, let the business go on that end of things. I didn't like that life. It was fast paced again. It was something that I was used to living growing up as a kid. And then I got to experience this just awesome flow of peace, and compassion, and just a great high. It's a high to me. Living this life is a high to me. And there I was on the other side again, making lots of money and just living in the fast lane. And like I said, just one day I just sat down and I said, wow, this ain't the answer. But I had to experience that again to really, really, really appreciate what I felt for 6 years, 7 years prior. And I wouldn't trade this again for nothing. And is it possible to go back down that road? Yeah, if it really is. You never know, what you're what you have mapped out for yourself down there. But uh yeah, it was just really honestly a smack in the face. One day I just sat down and said, what am I doing? None of this stuff matters to me. But at that point I made that decision. Everything mattered to me. It was the full-blown ego, the nice car, the big house, the great job, the lots of money. And the money really is what started it, and through the breakup of a girlfriend, and something happened where I just didn't even want to be in a relationship anymore. I wanted that relationship back with myself. And through that whole little time, I lost the relationship with myself. And that's when I realized what was important. But had I not been there, just to, brush the surface for a little while, prior, I would have just been cruising on through life like a dummy, thinking that was the ticket. But there was really no joy and no happiness. I didn't even have time to be happy or joyous or peaceful. And like I said, today, nothing really matters in life. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. I'll just say it's not all that important. What's important to me today is my peace, my joy, my gratitude for this life, not anything else. And like Poonam was saying, it's beautiful these days when you encounter a quote unquote problem or a situation, and how I deal with that today versus the unconscious me, is just, it's, to me, it's amazing, just to hold this level of peace and tranquility. And yeah, but again, that contrast was necessary to experience that again, just to strengthen me, and maybe catapult me a little more this time in the resurrection, the comeback. So, at the end of the day, it was like a slingshot, going back, and then letting it go.
Wow.
Yeah, but that, in that instance as well too, because I never really did look back on the past, even though I was in this, sleep-like state, because I knew the past had no reality. I thought I was living for the day in my head. But it really, like, I start my day with gratitude, just open my eyes in the morning, and I try to just stay there for 3 minutes. And I often think about, that time not too long ago. And it's, just the little interactions like this that keeps, me and probably a whole lot of other people just tuned in, just all the way around. And it's everything happens for a reason.
Wow, I love your story. Thank you for sharing
Wow.
that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Caesar. So one of the things that I told Patricia was this sliding back, right? What Dr. Joe Dispenza says is we are hardwired. The unconsciousness, we've done it 20, 30, 40 years, whatever our age may be, until we became unconscious, conscious, that it's so hardwired within us. And one of the things that happens, Caesar, what I've noticed is if we move around unconscious human beings like friends, co-workers, they'll pull us into that unconsciousness. They'll repeat back the unconsciousness, like, you know, I gave the example I gave Patricia was that my ex-husband may suddenly say, oh, I cannot pick up my son, right? He was 8 or 9 years old. It's his turn to keep my son. And I made arrangements that weekend to meet a friend, right? And he'll say, oh, I cannot pick him up. You just have to, I have to go somewhere or I have to do something. I cannot pick him up. So if I call my friend, right, about that incident, she'll be the one that call him a jerk or something. It won't be like I accept the moment. I mean, I didn't even have Eckhart's teachings. To me, like my son was, it has been for the past 24 years, it has been, he's like the center of my universe. Like if something needed to happen for him, I would drop everything and I would be there for him, right? So if somebody canceled, if a coach didn't come pick him up or somebody didn't come pick him up, then I was the one that was the primary, right? So I would just do it out of that and no narrative, right? But she would call him a jerk and all that. So then we are rewriting the programming, right? And it's not even like they know that very much of what I experienced in my marriage for them to call my ex-husband a jerk. But that's how human behavior is. Bitterness about marriages is, right? They'll call the other person a jerk or whatever kinds of names. So they'll rewrite. So it's better to pull away from those kind of people. The more we look at our past, right? And we want to say, oh, my father did so and so. I mean, I give examples of my mother just because I need to give some live examples. If not, people will not understand. But I have no bitterness towards my mother anymore. I have unconditional love for her. So, you know, that thing we need to pull away from is the coworkers that may say about each other, like bad mouthing each other, right? Oh, she did so and so, and this person did so and so, that person did so and so, right? Complaining, like all the egoic things that Eckhart says, if they're showing resentment, then pull away from them. Like if they're complaining, just listen and know that you're being pulled into that unconsciousness, because that overrides, like Michelle said, right? We are trying to deprogram ourselves. We are trying to lose that programming. And the more we hardwire, and then if you watch shows, like if you watch a lot of drama, right? All this primetime television, I'm sure there are a lot of dramatic series that have this person betraying that person sleeping around with this other person, whatever it may be, right? Whatever the prime time. I mean, I'm not watch TV, so I don't even know what's general these days on TV. What's available in programming these days? You were going to say something, Caesar?
Yeah, it's all fear-based, really. And so when you start to identify with what you're watching, and then you start to get emotional over, you know, it is programming. It's called programming for a reason. But at the end of the day, it all really falls back to the law of attraction. For me, it did. So looking back, when I had to analyze this and say, well, how did this happen? It was, you know, it started off with just a simple situation, as you just, you know, explained, and, you know, having my buddy say, whatever. And yeah. And then I just noticed, you know, looking back, not at the time I didn't, but looking back, I noticed that my vibrations were slowly, you know, being lowered. And because of that, I wound up with running with the stupid crowd again. I shouldn't say the stupid crowd, but yeah, the people I had no business being around. And really it was what I was attracting, nobody else, you know. So I know from my experience that I created everything that showed up in my entire life, literally. And that was the blessing. That was the lesson for me coming out of that, was realizing that nobody did this to me. I did this to me. Um, but then I found quite a few lessons within it, and it just strengthened my will, you know, for this I don't know, it was just like a longing of this peace, I guess, right? But my point is that at the end of the day, it was my energy that was attracting, the things that showed up in my life, including the people, and then the situations that I put myself in or created, or helped co-create. Yeah, and that's actually when I started really turning to Abe and learning, a little bit about that, and then it made perfect sense. That's kind of maybe why I gravitated to her, a little more than
Eckhart.
not so much. No, I still love Eckhart, but I mean, for a time, I did switch over, completely. Uh, but it was just what was calling me. And once I learned a little bit about it, that's when that whole thing made a whole lot of sense. Because prior to that, I didn't know anything about the law of attraction. But I was influenced by the energy in the room, and then became, uh, you know, I was no longer on any high flying disc. I was not connected to source. Period. End of the day, I was just not connected.
So
I just
Tia, that being said, if you are in the low energy vibration, is it even possible to get out of it by yourself, or you really need help? Because you actually walked out, you make the decision, but does it mean that you started vibrating on higher frequency that what allowed you to leave your life?
yes, yes. It was a matter of not being grateful versus being grateful. That was the shift for me. That's what initially raised my vibrational frequency, and things started showing up pretty instantaneously at that point. Yeah, so I knew once I raised my vibrations, things would start to change for me. But
And you had Mhm.
But
you also have
what was the turning point? Like you were unconscious, and then what took you out? Isn't that what you're asking, Patricia? What took you
yeah,
out
yeah, the
of it?
gratitude, knowing that I just didn't feel grateful for anything, and I realized I was just not. Yeah, I'm a practitioner of energy in a sense, and I knew, deep in my heart that I was not vibing well. And then I was recognizing the things that were shown in my life that one time, not long ago, didn't matter at all to me. Now they matter the world to me. And that's when I just decided, and ironically, Abraham Hicks talks about all the time, you can't get to happy from sad. So it was a matter of me just stop being the egoic Caesar and dissolve that whole. Honestly, it was just a matter of returning to gratitude and to be grateful for what is. And if I didn't have none of that, and I realized that wasn't important to me, like again, it was going back to the house, the cars, the money. Um, and I realized that is not what's important to me. And that all started over a breakup, of a whatever 20-year marriage. But again, that was a slingshot for me. And I felt like that's what the difference was. I don't feel grateful. I used to live in gratitude. And that was a great feeling. And I knew I was vibing high. Every cell of my body, was, I can literally feel it like I was attached to an energy, an electrical line. And when I knew I wasn't grateful for things, and identified with things, I made the decision to change that. But in saying this, you have to allow, what you're seeking to happen. Because if you can say, you're grateful for everything, and then the changes start taking place, but if you're not allowing the good things to happen to you, it's senseless. That's got everything to do with alignment, synchronicity, stuff like that. So
Thank you. Yes, that was wonderful. So just by Eckhart even say, if the only thing you will say, the only mantra you will repeat is thank you, that will change.
yeah, absolutely, that's awesome.
So
The only
thank
prayer.
Let's practice now.
Thank you for that as well.
And the best part right now, Caesar, is Patricia actually has social media and all of us with her, right? Lakshmi says Kritajnaham. Grateful. So it snaps you out of the unconsciousness faster. At that time, 10 years back or something, we didn't have anybody. We had just ourselves, right? There was no social media. I don't even think I had joined Facebook 10 years back, 10, 12 years back. I may have just started. So it's not even something that we had. But now you have so much help. You have all the Rupert Spira videos, you have Eckhart's videos. So to snap back is so much more easier, right? So
Yeah, and I want to just touch on that because Patricia asked, did I need help? Yeah, I definitely needed help. And that's actually when I turned to a little more teachings. Whether it doesn't matter who it was from, who the teacher was, but I gravitated and just changed the way I was doing things. Really just flipped everything upside down. But I think at the end of the day, it was the study of this whole thing. So I did need help apparently, and that was one of the ways I was being reminded of the things that I needed to do inward.
But you were open. You opened yourself for it. So that was also amazing, that you allowed it, because many people, you kind of see they could use it. You give it to them, the book even, and they just never even read it. So you allowed it that
Yeah,
moment.
perfectly said. You're absolutely right.
the the other pointer I wanted to give Patricia is I feel the little that I know about you, and just now what Caesar said, right? That he always had a love for animals. And what else was it, Caesar? That there was some aware. I feel that all of us that are here right now, right? We were not completely unconscious. I mean, we say we were unconscious 10 years, 10 years back, we got our awakening or we had that moment. I have a feeling, even as children, as little babies, we were not unconscious. We were more conscious than the people around us. That's why we are on this path now.
I totally 100% agree with you. And for
Right?
sure. What
Because
level of consciousness? Yeah.
I remember, even though I say I may have, I mean, in my marriage, I was unconscious. I was unconscious as a child. But I know, just like Caesar is saying, right? I know I always had compassion for my maidservants. Like, even though there was discrimination, like the racial discrimination here in the US, we have a caste system discrimination, right? I always would go to my maidservant's house and eat out of their plates because I was from the upper caste. The same thing, there's always a discrimination between Hindus and Muslims. I would go eat in a Muslim's house. Like my friends, my best friends were Muslim. I would eat out of their plates and containers, right? So I knew there was some compassion always throughout my life, even though, of course, life was unconscious. So I feel that's the case. So honor that in you, Patricia, that you've always been conscious. Like the car example that you gave of your father, that you were sitting in the car, he was saying something, and you could say that it's not the right thing. Whatever he's saying is not right. That's awareness, right? So you were always aware. You were always aware. Yeah, there are periods of unconsciousness in that we have our pain body and the pain body comes through and all that. But we had awareness and unawareness, awareness and unawareness.
And it almost links very well to the question we were talking about before, that very strong ego allowed me in him to see that this is not the truth. This is not what the reality is about. It's not, yes.
That's correct.
But that's why he had to be so, powerfully wrong. Because otherwise he was a brilliant man, that I admired. So if I could just, if he was likable, I would just accept it. But because he wasn't, that what rubbed so wrong through my entire being, I knew that that's not truth.
Regina says, opening myself to being able to receive love, help, lessons has become just as important to me as being able to give in life. Yeah. We do welcome our lessons. I know I see Nancy on video. Nancy, did you want to say something about this topic? Or
I'm not even sure what the topic is. I joined late and then I was on the phone with you. And then I decided to come in and do the actual room. So forgive me, I'm not even sure what the topic is, but no doubt it's the topic has to do with a commonplace happening in our lives, right? Whether it be marital difficulties. Can you just catch me up to speed with that? And I would like to make a commentary from Stillness Speaks.
the question was, while we are on this path, an early part of this path, there are times that we get into unconsciousness, that we may be conscious most of the day, but there may be days, like in a week, there may be a day that we become unconscious. So how do we remain conscious throughout? Why do we become unconscious?
Okay. I think we all have a common denominator here. Correct me if I'm wrong. The name of the group is Eckhart Tolle, is it not? Purnam? Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even sure, not that it matters, if Purnam was a male or a female, because I go onto your site. You know, I'm a follower of your site. I think everyone can agree we're serious about coming into our I am, right? And we falter. And I think this does have to do with why do we get unconscious. I was so a student of Wayne Dyer. Then Wayne passed away, and I always credited Mr. Dyer as the great synthesizer. He's like the great regurgitator, a mama bird, you know, regurgitates. He would just take the pearls of every spiritual person, the highest vibratory being on the face of the earth, and then he, like, for instance, the Tao, right? His translation of the Tao. So when I think personally, he ascended, I kind of went into this doldrum of, he was my main squeeze, now what? And I knew about Eckhart, but I had reservations about being open to the simplicity of Eckhart's teachings. Who could deny how simple yet profound his teachings are? So I kind of had, I listened to him, probably like you all, before I go to bed. There isn't a day that I don't extract just a few minutes. I get a little fix of Eckhart every single day. I'm immersed in the material world, yet I have one foot in the material and another foot, and as he says, step into the now, right? Easier said than done. How do we step into the now? I love that little verb, step into. So picked this up the other day, and I don't know if anybody has this. It's so Stillness Speaks, yeah. And I practice all the time, and I'm sustained anytime I listen to him, yet I step back, I guess. So I picked this up, talk about synchronicity, and I had an aha moment. And I just opened the book, and I'm got to have that underline. And I previously underlined. Did you ever do that? Underline a sentence, you go back to it, you don't even remember underlining it. May I just read? I think it's relevant because we are all, if we're blessed enough to live this, I'm in my 70s now, and my book of life has many chapters like you all. I'm sure you have great chapters on lessons that you've learned in each decade. So I opened this up, and it said, I'm going to change this pronoun to a we. We continuously, we overlook the most obvious fact, and this is my paraphrase, on our journey with our turmoils and our ups and downs, we continuously overlook the most obvious. Your innermost sense of I am has nothing to do with what happens in our life. Nothing to do with content. So I jumped down and I realized, and he says, we usually get confused with what's happening, which is content. We're confusing all that content with the journey of us and our I am. Just being, as Eckhart says, it's in the background, and Eckhart is in the foreground. Probably like all great spiritual teachers. So that's been my quest. How do I bring, I know that background, that background of consciousness is there, but I'd like more of it. I'd like to not manifest, I'd like to express more of my beingness. And bingo, Nancy, you're getting what's happening confused. It's right there. So I don't know. He says how easy it is to remember the truth and thus return home. So maybe that rang for me, maybe not for you, but I just had to share that with you. We get confused, with our marriages and difficulty. The difficulty is just part of the content. Has nothing to do with our I am.
Beautiful.
Is this every month, by the way? Is this little Eckhart Tolle?
Every Wednesday. Every Wednesday.
Oh, is it every Wednesday?
Mhm.
I was amazed to see I guess we're the right 11 people. There's 11 of us. And this is my first time that I've joined in, and I figured, there'll be a thousand. I've done his School of Awakening online. Are you familiar with that? And just love that man.
Yes.
I just love that man. So it's beautiful to see you. Who is Patricia? I see it's Patkas, right? But we call you Patricia? Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello. Thank you,
So-
Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Stillness.
We are honored. Thank you. Michelle, did you want to answer Patricia's question that we get unconscious?
Yeah, Patricia. I mean, that is the journey. We go back and forth, right? From that living in that horizontal dimension of humanness, right? And we stay there and play there a bit too long, right? And then we get drowned in our everyday judgments or conditioning or resentments or negativity, right? Or old patterns. And then, oh, wait, I have to, and that's what's the beauty of today and the technology. And I was just on with the community presence. They did the monthly gathering yesterday, and they were talking about technology, right? And how it can make you even more unconscious, right? With all the stuff that goes on. And if you dig deep into that, you can really get mired in all the negativity. Or it could be used as an anchor. And we have satsang here, right? So for me, on this spiral staircase, right, that we go into, we start here and then we keep going up, and we kind of revisit some of the old patterns that have been within us for decades that maybe are tugging at us a little bit stronger, and those knots are a little bit more difficult to untie. But with satsang, there's like an anchor there that's pulling us every week, twice a week, or you're listening to podcasts on the way to work, or whatever it is that you do that pulls. That's, for me, has been the difference this go around. I mean, I started with that card in 2007. I started with Wayne Dyer back in 97, and along the way others, right? And going always back and forth. And, but I think like in 2010, when I was switching jobs and I knew that I wanted to serve, I wanted to be in something. For me, that was important because of my issue, you know, my background and my whole history with Joseph and having a child with special needs. That in serving, I felt that all my suffering and all my wisdom that had been acquired up to that point, I could share, you know what I mean? And even though it was on a more practical level, the spiritual always infused the practical. So that for me was really key to be able to give back in some capacity. Because there's nothing more healing than when you're in your own darkness to have to wake up and being able to be open to give back to somebody else. That's like a healing balm. So maybe, I mean, I know you work full time, you know, but that might be something, volunteer or something, that might be another, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, you have, I mean, when did you, I mean, you've come so far, Patricia, you know, and I think you just want to think that, you know, there's an end to the journey, and there's not an end to the journey. You just go further up the spiral staircase and you revisit stuff. And then you have to have compassion for yourself and patience for yourself, because you're in the muck again, right? No mud, no lotus, that's it. The mud is always going to be there. And then the lotus contracts and goes back into, right? And then it's reborn again. And I've been there. I mean, you know, I mean, like now with Joseph getting COVID, you know, and I'm like, okay, I'm in 10 days, like plans get, and I'm like, okay, you know what? It's just offer total acceptance, because you know what? There's nothing else to do. And sometimes it's harder. I mean, when you know, when I think the surrender piece, right? There's like certain aspects of life that are just a little bit more tender, right? And so those are the ones that you'll keep revisiting. That, at least for me, that's my experience. I keep revisiting, you know. But you know, I have my stepdaughter who's also on the path, so we communicate really, you know, I have someone, my husband as well, so that helps me too. And he's very supportive of everything that I do. So he allows me the space for this, because he knows from me that's really important. So yeah, I think that, you know, the satsang, the serving, the meditation, you know, and continuing to be that witnessing presence. So even when you're in the muck, before you would maybe just be in the muck and you're like totally identified with that state of negativity. But I can't, you're witnessing yourself there, right? So the pull isn't as strong. You know, even though you're still feeling the emotions of it, you're not totally in it. Like you're not buying the game anymore, right? So there's a part of you that knows that this is going to pass, and you've got other, hold on, Joseph.
Hi.
The other one, yeah. No. So that's my take.
Thank you. That was, yeah, I
Hi,
think
Joseph.
that, hi, Joseph.
He can't hear you because I have my earbuds on. Okay, but next time, okay? So now we
Hi,
say hello.
Hi,
Joseph.
Joseph.
Say hi. Say hi.
Hi, Joseph. We love you.
Hi, Poem.
See, he's
Hi,
feeling better.
We love you,
That's
Joseph.
you. Yeah.
Puma.
You can't say your name. He says Puma. Puna. So
Poem. I feel much better now.
he's feeling better, he's saying.
Fantastic, Joseph. Have a safe trip back.
Okay, I'm gonna get off for a little bit, but
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
Incredible. Bye. So that was another pointer as well, right, Patricia? Michelle actually led into it. And this is what I told Patricia is it seems like Eckhart does not say this because Eckhart focuses so much on the present moment. This is where Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings matter, because Dr. Joe Dispenza is always taking us to get into the new body, new environment, and a whole new time, right? Every meditation of his is now, whether it's the tuning into new potentials. After you do the tuning into new potentials, at the very end, you say, you bless your soul, you bless your body, you bless your, then you have gratitude, because gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. And then he says, now I welcome you into a new body, a whole new environment, and a whole new time, because see yourself as no longer being that programmed Patricia. See yourself as being the new you. And one of them being what Michelle said is finding some way of service. Now, even though Michelle said find some way of service, I would say reframe your current job as a way of service. Like every time, like when you wake up with the enthusiasm that today, I don't know who I am, like what Marianne Williamson said that for course of, I may not remember the words correctly. Who am I going to speak to? Who am I going to meet? And what words am I going to say? Right? If you imbue every word with loving kindness and compassion, even though it is with a coworker, right? Then that means you are being of service to them because you've touched them. To me, even like my the person that does my nails, the moment I walk in, she'll come and give me a huge hug, right? The moment I walk into the dry cleaners, right, they'll have a big old smile. Like the moment they see my car, they already have my clothes ready, and like they'll talk to me. And so that exchange in itself, right, is so, I mean, we are being of service right then in that exchange, right? I know the grocery store that I go to, one person is differently able, like the cashier. And the way I respectfully talk to her, and I'll ask her about her day and what's going on and all that, like she's like so full of life at that moment, right? So service does not mean that you have to find something. Find the service in every day what you're doing, and that comes from starting your morning with, like what Nancy said, right? Put on like some Eckhart talk. Do your morning routine with like some sort of sacredness. I also found Rupert Spira's meditations very grounding. So
Yes, he has this like very similar presence power as Eckhart. Yeah, I
exactly,
found it too.
the meditations, like the YouTube videos that are labeled as meditations, are really, really grounding. So, first of all, and this is something that I expressed to Patricia, because I take melatonin, right? When I wake up, it almost is like if you were taking a nap, a very good nap, and you were in a very sweet sleep, and suddenly you were woken up. You know, when the soul returns into the body, the soul has left the body, right? When the soul returns to the body, there's like a sweetness. You don't want to wake up, like you almost want to go fall back asleep, right? So in the morning, because of my melatonin that I take, I don't want to like completely start the activities of the day. I actually, even using the restroom, brushing my teeth, going towards my lemon water, right? Trying to make my lemon water. I can still, I want like complete silence. I don't want any talk. I don't want anybody. I want to feel that sweetness of my being, my inner being. My inner being is so precious. This feeling of inner being is so sweet. It's no honey, no maple syrup, no crown maple syrup is as good as the sweetness of being. Then I mean, it almost is like the first half hour, 45 minutes. I don't even want to listen to Eckhart. I don't even want to listen to Rupert Spira. Finally, I'll put on something like in the 45 minutes, an hour or so. I'll put on some talk or one of the meditations. I've started liking Rupert Spira's meditations in the morning more than
Right, so this is all the practice we do. So in those moments that happen to us, that the negativity that's pull us down, we actually have something, some tool to get back to, right? To get us out of there. And it becomes shorter and not as intense. Because I used to remember I couldn't even take naps during the day because when I woke up, I was angry. Like for some reason, the napping during the day, even though I was exhausted because of all my adrenaline fatigue and everything. So I needed to lie down, but I was waking up so angry. It's like I couldn't contain my anger. So I decided I am not going to sleep during the day because it
the
doesn't.
sleep, but the sleep during the day, any kind of sleep, and that's what I would say when you get into negativity, the nap. That's Abraham Hicks's pointer. You take a nap because you want to cut the momentum. Your momentum is going. You boom, 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 boom. Your brain is going. Oh, what about my dad and my brother did this, and my ex did this, and my so and so did
Right,
this,
I can't
and
fall asleep
do,
if
do,
I
do, do,
have that.
do, do.
Yeah.
So either do meditation, put on the meditation music, and let the thoughts go through. But they would be something. Um, Something needs to separate, just like Simon was explaining, right? The John Smith, yeah, you're being King Lear, but the John Smith needs to also be there. The background needs to be there. And unless you bring yourself to, okay, I'm just going to sit down and meditate, right? And then focus on your breath, focus on your inner body, because inner body is the anchor, right? The other thing I would strongly recommend, my first real experience of complete presence, the one that I'm talking about, the sweetness and preciousness of beingness, is Qigong, is Kim Ming's Qigong. So I would say either take Kelly and Kelly, like whether you like whichever Kelly, right? Take a class with them and see, does that make a difference for you? Does that bring you into your inner body? Because the body and breath is your anchor.
Right.
When the mind is going so fast,
Right.
we
So
have to
in
bring
moments I am like successful in those things because I do use Kelly's exercise that he showed us during the
the earth
sub-
mirror.
yes, I do those and they help me, even the ones with the exercise when he breathes and then puts his arms out. I do that. But why is it still so attractive? Like that it hit me. It was some kind of a thought of, being alone and what am I doing here? It's like how nothing makes sense. And I just started crying and it pulled me. But in that moment, I had to let it go and through the motion. I couldn't get myself out before it went too deep into this negativity. So that's, yes, I have all these tools that I practice outside that moment, but it kind of got me out of the blue. And
because it is programming for 30, 40, whatever years, right? It's a programming that is already programmed. So the moment you start to spiral, if you can catch yourself that you're spiraling, the first thought arises, right? The John Smith is seeing the spiraling.
Yeah, I didn't catch myself quick enough here.
Right? The moment John Smith recognizes that it's spiraling, you have to, like Abraham Hicks says, right? When the car is going down the hill, it's easier to stop it at the top of the hill. You just
Right.
nudge it and it'll stop. But the moment it is coming to the
It
bottom of
has
the hill,
momentum,
it
yes.
has so much momentum that you have to crash. You have to let it crash, right? So you had to let it crash. But what I'm saying is what will take it away? What will take the negativity finally away is when you see yourself being a different you in the future.
Mm.
So you have to invest in your future, manifest who is this new Patricia. I'm already a new Patricia since last year. I've dedicated almost a year, less than a year into this practice. Now, who is this new Patricia? What is this new Patricia going to manifest? The old Patricia manifested what she manifested. The new Patricia already manifested a job, right? Now, what is the new Patricia going to manifest? Right? Let's go to Ken and ask him some questions. Go ahead, Ken. I think you're on mute, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been acting a little funky. Oh, I love this. Patricia, you're awesome. In 1 year's time, you have been taking action. You have been showing up. You have been vulnerable. You have cried. You have been angry. You have been real. And it's showing, and you're growing. And so there's so many things, I'm thinking of what I do in the morning. First thing I do is I say, I love you to the universe. I say, thank you for a new day, and realizing that I have to do a ritual and realize that my life that I'm living now isn't about me. It's about what can I give back? And I'm asking the higher power to give me what I need and to show me what I need. And when I do that, it took me a long time to realize that sometimes I need to go through some anger. I need to cry. I need to get frustrated. I need to, excuse the pain, I need to throw up emotionally. And it's okay that I don't know what's going on inside of me. Now, at one time, I used to really beat myself up because I thought I was defective. And now I realize, no, this is where I'm at in the moment. I don't know what's going on, but I'm learning to surrender and trust. And I'm learning to ask for help. And sometimes these things come up. These are opportunities. And this is, to me, this is the universe or higher power, whatever we may call it, is putting me in position to go through something. And realizing that God doesn't give us anything that we can't go through. I need to take action. I need to lean into my own uncomfortability. I need to embrace the shadow. And all of a sudden, I could be having a good day, and all of a sudden, everything makes sense. And all of a sudden, bam, something comes over me. It's a wave of energy that's coming over me. And so, what am I going to do? I have a choice. And I'm learning every second and every time, all times of the day, things are going to happen. And life is an opportunity to work through, to be unconscious, to be whatever. And I'm realizing I am exactly where I need to be. And I'm trusting in that rather than me thinking or wondering, because then my ego starts to take over. And it will take over and it will tell me all kinds of things that aren't true. It will have me blaming people that have nothing to do with them, and realizing that I have to surrender, let go. And I'm always learning. Okay, I went away. I knew I was going to go away. Lots of times I was petrified. I was scared because of the technology, because of certain things. And I went, I got to let go. I got to lean into it. And I tell you, in the last few days, I'm blown away. Everything is falling in place. And I even went through a couple of things that I went through that would have really upset me. And I just said, thank you. Because I told myself, this is going to be a learning experience to have a relationship with me. I'm not going to be dependent on anybody. And I didn't realize how insecure I was. And I said, okay, so it's time to start doing things on my own. And when something happens, I need to figure it out. Pretty much what Poonam was saying earlier on how she dealt with coming into the country or dealing with her job and then saying no. And then she was hiding behind the curtain. That was all me. And so I'm realizing if I didn't watch the mirrors, which is every single one of you, and now that I'm in presence, it's helping me to go through what I need to go through much faster and to be thankful that I have the opportunities and I have all the tools inside of me to deal with them. And if I don't, I have you, meaning the group, each and every one of you. And I'm realizing, just listen, because it's amazing how many messages come through the five senses all the time. Ask for help. And all of a sudden, the right book comes, the right conversation. Even earlier when you said, when I spoke, and then Poonam said, look at Patricia. Ken is saying some things. I mean, I'm hearing it from everybody all the time. And I'm like, sometimes I go, hey, you're stealing what I was going to say, because that's what I wanted to say. So it's just amazing. And it's like, have fun with it. And realizing that, no, this is learning a new language. And I call it coming from the heart's intelligence rather than trying to figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. Just listen and just feel and allow it to come through. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yes, that was my word, Kunam.
Thank you so much, Ken. You
Thank
know,
you.
since Ken
Thank you.
mentioned rituals, what happened that day, or what led up to that day that you spiraled into negativity? Even examine that, because if that week at work was a lot of negativity, then on top of that you did not get it. So everybody thinks that they can deny themselves sleep. Sleep is equivalent to meditation. If you don't get 8 hours of sleep, right, then you have not returned to source enough to get that renewal, that rejuvenation, right? So either you have 8 hours of sleep, or if you've done 6 hours of sleep, then you're doing another 2 hours of meditation. If you have had 4 or 5 hours of sleep, then you're doing 3 hours of meditation completely still to balance your day, because we need 8 to 10 hours of that homeostasis, right? And if we have not had that, so think of, look at it non-judgmentally. What led up to that day? What happened that day? Who did I talk to? Who imprinted my soul again with those negativity, that kind of negative beliefs? What happened? Who did I talk to that day? What topics did I talk to them about on that day? And guess what? They prepared, they lit up the bonfire.
Oh my goodness, that's so helpful. Right, right. It was many times it's just a few things together, like seeing my mom, because I talk to her right now every day during lunchtime to just see her. And
You may want to stop seeing her. You don't need to, you may want to tell her something came up at work. Mom, I'm not able to talk to you every day. I'll talk to you on the weekend, right? Just see how that happens. Is your week better? If you don't, even with people at work, if you know some people are troublesome, right? They have a pain body, then step away. I mean, come help them because you want your presence to flow, but then like maintain a distance from them, and then get your sleep. because sleep and meditation, that homeostasis is, if you cannot be in homeostasis all 24 hours, at least 8 hours a day, you have to be in homeostasis to bring that presence power out into the world. If not, it will, we will spiral into negativity.
Funny enough, to tell you the truth, it's opposite with me, because during the week, with even sleeping 6 hours and then doing my routine, I kind of smoothly go through it a little more, but maybe I'm collecting stuff, and then on the weekend when I actually have the time to sleep and I just let myself sleep that 8 hours and I wake up whenever, the weekends are where the stuff is coming out.
Because you
So
collected it, those
Mhm.
imprints were made already during the week.
Mhm.
And now that you're alone, you're able to feel it. All that time you were suppressing it, right?
Right.
Because there was things, just like Caesar said, 1 year of unconsciousness. He just went through the cycle of 1 year of the car and the girl and the car and the money, right? It kept him going. The unconsciousness keep, and that's what actually got me to separate from my ex-husband. It's like it would go in my mind, what am I doing? I wake up, I do stuff for my son, I go to work, I watch some TV, I go to bed, wake up, and it's like it's a cycle, and it's been 14 years, and I've been doing the same thing for 14 years. What is the meaning of life? Right? You
Right.
wake up, you go to work, you do things, and work is like crazy. You're going from one thing to another, and then you do stuff in the evening, you cook, whatever it may be, right? Routine in the evening, watch TV, go to bed, and again you repeat it, and boom, 14 years go by so quickly. You were going to say something, Caesar? You're on mute, I think, Caesar.
I'm sorry. At the end of the day, it's really all about the momentum and exactly what Poonam was just saying. Um, Sleep is a beautiful way to break momentum, because you're marinating in that, for the next 6 hours or however many hours you're going to sleep. So I think the best advice from my end would be first thing in the morning, get that good momentum going. It takes 2 minutes, literally. Open your eyes. Do not let the thoughts rush in. And just, you don't even need a reason to be grateful. Find gratitude and hold it, like sincerely hold it. It could be for your soft pillow. It could be for the sun. It could be that you woke up this morning. Find that gratitude and really, really, really put all your attention there for 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes. It's like 90 seconds, literally 90 seconds. And then milk that. Put your feet on the ground, milk that gratitude as long as you can. And then try to let that start your day and get that good high vibe and momentum going seriously. And things will change for you quick.
Awesome. I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Wayne
Thank
Dyer, it's
you.
funny, Nancy mentioned Wayne Dyer. He's got, during them days when I was going off track, and one of the videos that I actually bumped across was actually a Wayne Dyer video, and I could send you a link if you'd like, but if you just Googled Wayne Dyer 5 minutes before you go to sleep, that's the name of it. It is very, very, very powerful. And you listen to this, it's like a little guided meditation. It's probably 3 minutes long, but he has one that's on a loop. And it is very, very, very powerful for creating that momentum, and that it just puts you right back in tune. It was powerful, but you got this.
I think now you have like a lot of pointers, right, Patricia? And you know what led up to that day. So you know how to change it. If you change what happened before and what happened on that day, then you won't repeat it. And if you repeat it, get out of it, take a nap, do meditation, go for a walk, put on Dr. Joe Dispenza's walking meditation, which says, I'm an unlimited genius. I'm a healer. Step into the healer. And when you step, just like Nada says, right? When you step into you being the healer. And I am the unlimited genius. Listen to him and do exactly what he's saying.
Physically integrate, yes.
You're integrating. Yeah, integration is needed. This was incredibly amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Ken,
Thank you
Michelle,
so much. Yes, for
Patricia,
bringing this
Caesar.
out. So grateful for you guys.
Eternally grateful to all of you. Sri Lakshmi, Lakshmi, Regina,
Thank you. Thank
Summer,
you.
Christina, everyone online as well.
Thank you.
Much love, many blessings. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. Bye.